Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. It's Ali Corman, Ed Carson here with a breakdown of the action in today's session, where we saw a strong open, but we didn't close like we opened, Ed.
No, it all sort of fell apart a few minutes after that. All waiting for the Fed. I do want to take a look at a few stocks. Arista Networks, strong earnings reaction, while BJ's Wholesale and Global Foundries are setting up in bases.
Yeah, we'll get to those three stocks, but first let's take a look at the major indexes. As you said, Ed, all eyes are now on the Fed, and that decision coming out tomorrow could be a potential roller coaster. We'll have to see what the reaction is like. But for today, the NASDAQ down 0.9%, the Dow off by 0.25% in the market today as well. The S&P down 0.4%. So your thoughts on how we closed? I guess here's a look at the Dow here. Not all too surprising to see perhaps some level of indecision into the Fed. You know, there have been times where we have rallied ahead of Fed news and then, gotten smacked in the face.
Yeah, rallying into the Fed or Fed-related news has not been been a great strategy in 2022. There was at 10 o'clock we had economic data which suggested that the labor market was stronger than expected, manufacturing stronger than expected, not what the Fed really wants to see. So that that hit the market pretty quickly. The mega caps really took it on the chin. So that was something where the Dow held up. It's around a 200-day line, but gosh, how many days up has it been? And heading into the Fed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's holding there. That's not like it's getting, slammed back down. So natural to pause here. We'll see. I mean, look, if the market had been up, it had been down. As long as it wasn't like up 4% or down 4%, it's almost like, we've got tomorrow's meeting. And that could go on through Wednesday, Thursday, and then we have the jobs report. So there's a lot of stuff happening here. NASDAQ still sort of hitting resistance shortly below the 50-day line, maybe recent highs, but it's not breaking down or anything. It's holding the 21-day line. And I believe the S&P 500 held the 50-day line. So there was a lot of it wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible either.
Yeah, and right around the highs of the day and a couple sessions ago, that's one of the levels that we are keeping an eye on here, Ed. And I guess we can take a look at some other indexes as well, like the Russell 2000, which is tracked by the IWM ETF. It's also getting near a key level to watch, the 200-day line here. RSP, also worth taking a look at. This is the equal weight S&P 500. So interesting here to see this up 0.25%, whereas the S&P 500 it was down about 0.4%. So I guess if you take out the weakness in the bigger names, it's looking like it was better underneath the surface.
Yeah, and we've been seeing that the Russell's been stronger. Advanced declines have certainly been better than often the major indexes. We look at the equal weight for the Qs, QQQE. I believe that was around flat. Okay, it finally dipped a little bit, but it's actually holding, I think, above its 50-day line. Amazon was down almost, like 5.5%. Google also hit a bear market low. Microsoft and Amazon weren't looking good. So those big caps are really not helping at all. So there is some strength underneath. You don't want to overplay that, but there is some strength elsewhere. But we have to sort of wait till what the Fed does, and a lot of this is clearly related to bond yield as well. I think that's one thing we need to take a look at.
Yeah, let's take a look at the 10-year Treasury yield here.
Yeah, because it tumbled early morning. It wasn't exactly. We opened strongly because yields were down a lot.
Yeah.
And we had this news, this unconfirmed chatter that maybe China would start easing up on its COVID curbs, in a few months. That wasn't denied. But once that news came out, it really rebounded really from the start. But then right around 10 o'clock, there was the news. So it went up to there essentially almost flat. So it's down a little bit, but really giving up a lot of those declines. And it was hard for the market to face with that. We'll just have to see how we go. How the Fed may or may not drop hints. It may be unclear. So it could be very volatile on Wednesday. It could be that volatility could continue on Thursday in reverse course. It might go away. And then people say, well, wait a second. Now that I look at this, I think this is really saying this. So uh,
Hmm.
there could be a lot of things going on. I mean, it'll be difficult to navigate and make decisions, but people have to be prepared for a lot of volatility for the rest of the week.
Right. So, with that being said, then we are in a market rally. We've had a follow through day. We've had stocks that have been setting up and breaking out or presenting early entries and extending gains. We've been adding exposure. So, with all that being said, if tomorrow is going to be a volatile day, then what's the play? How slow or quick to act should we be, both on the protecting profit side if we do get that worst case scenario, at least if that's what it's looking like, early on in the day? How far do we let things play out? Or do we get aggressive on the buy side if it looks like all systems go?
That's very different. It really is going to be depending on risk tolerance. You have to and how much can you count on it? Because the market, let's say the market tumbles 2% after the Fed's announcement, or as Powell says, some kind of line. Is that going to happen, or it could rebound right back up? And the reverse could be true. So if you do add, or if you do act, you might want to wait at least a few minutes for the announcement, or wait a few minutes into Powell's speech to see if things really hold before taking action. And that's one reason why you don't want to be too aggressive going into it. So you can wait and see a little bit. I mean, I don't think you need to panic. And then look, if the Fed gives the all clear signal, we get a positive news from the jobs, maybe this rally turns into something more meaningful, and there will be plenty of opportunities. There's stocks that are setting up that haven't broken out yet. So most stocks have not broken out yet. So there will be opportunities. So I don't think you want to necessarily do a whole lot tomorrow. Obviously, if we tumble tomorrow afternoon, then you may need to take action, but that's also why you don't want to be too exposed going into it.
Right. And maybe for current positions, look at those different time frames. Don't just look at an intraday chart or even a daily chart. Take a step back to the weekly. And of course, it all depends on where you bought and things like that. Of course, we don't want losses to get out of hand if we do see sell signals. But I'm saying this for myself too. Maybe just look at those different time frames. Don't be too quick or too slow. Just right.
Exactly.
If we could all have the just right approach. Wouldn't that be lovely? All right, well, let's take a look at ANET Ed, because Arista Networks had a very strong day, an upside reversal with shares gaining some 5.7% today. Strong volume after this earnings report, and this comes just a couple of sessions after a strong gap up for the stock after Meta's quarterly report, with all of that metaverse spending being favorable for Arista Networks. And it seems like investors really liked the results here, with the accelerating growth, but also it seems like there wasn't anything metaverse related that investors didn't like related to this report. What do you think, Ed?
Yeah, I mean, look, it has 4 straight quarters of accelerating earnings and sales growth. Those are good numbers, and this is a pretty big company. This is not, that's really solid growth in this environment. They had pretty good guidance. The margins were a little light. That's why there was a little bit of uncertainty to start, but it powered on as people just, liked how that went. The technical action, yeah, there's been a few red days, but especially the blue days have been bigger on volume, and those price gains have tended to be bigger too. I mean, when it's getting that volume, it's moving, as opposed to maybe little drops on volume. It's not that bad. So that was impressive. It got above that trend line, got above last week's high, which you could almost argue is another area. So that was really strong. And this is something else to remember. That's like when we talk about all this, the Fed and all this stuff, don't forget about earnings. I mean, there are so many earnings. A lot of the stocks that are setting up have earnings this week or next week, and it's that complicated. And you'll have things like this. You'll also have things that fall 20%. So there's a lot of things to navigate, and do not disregard upcoming earnings for companies.
Yes, that can't be said enough, Ed. But we also want to mention that Arista did join IBD's leaderboard on Tuesday. And for those who are subscribers or trialists, we will be doing our monthly leaderboard scorecard webinar this afternoon, coming up in about 15 minutes. So go to leaderboard.investors.com and we will see you there shortly to talk about monthly performance, trades, walking through those setups that we're looking at, and to answer your questions. So now let's move on to ticker BJ. BJ's Wholesale cleared an early entry not all too long ago, although this did lack volume. We did not get above average volume when the stock cleared this trend line. But now here, maybe, Ed, it's acting well. Maybe we see some sort of pause for another entry.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things. The volume on this upside has not been good. I mean, that's a great point to make. I do like it's a shallow base. It was only 13% deep. And it's at highs. This is a base that's right on top of a other base. So it's a base on base formation. And sometimes there's sort of a looser base, to be sure, before. So this is much tighter. It'd be great if it would form a handle here. It has earnings in a few weeks. There's still time. So if it formed a handle soon and it broke out, yeah, you could have it in there. But if it bases for a while, that's fine. But we're definitely seeing discounters and a lot of defensive names still doing well. And that should maybe give people a clue that maybe growth stocks aren't necessarily all the way to play it. It shows that there's definitely concerns about the economy. But this is definitely one of those stocks that should be on your watch list, just because this is an area of the market that's still doing pretty well.
That it is. And this was our stock of the day on Tuesday. So for more details about what's going on with this story here, make sure you check out the front page of investors.com for our stock of the day article. Let's also take a look at GFS. Ed, I know you are keeping tabs on the chip sector. You keep tabs on all the sectors, let's be honest. But the chip sector is still on our radar. Maybe some shifting leadership we've noticed, especially even more recently. We thought Wolfspeed was going to be a leader on semi, AEHR. There's a lot going on in the chip sector right now. GFS is looking pretty interesting, though, arguably clearing an early entry in a handle. It didn't close super strong, though. And again, volume was light. So maybe this one needs a little bit more time, but it has earnings in a week from today. So maybe that could be the catalyst for this stock.
Yeah, that might be the time to wait for it, especially given that, I mean, yeah, it did break that trend line, and maybe in a stronger market and there was no big news coming up, you said, oh, I can try to take advantage of that. But with the Fed and then the jobs, and then at that point, you've got the earnings coming up, it might be better in many cases to hold off, and certainly with this situation. Look, I mean, Global Foundries, I mean, has really strong growth coming in this year. It is interesting that the growth is going to trail off next year's. So that is something to keep in mind, and maybe just be that people just see a decline in chip production. I think they're benefiting from, at least a perceived shift that maybe a U.S.-based foundry will do better than, say, a Taiwan semi, right. TSM, which that's the world's largest. It has all the great equipment, but everybody's worried about China and maybe not just an invasion, but just that that they'll lose a lot of business because of various economic decoupling between the U.S. and China. So Global Foundries seems to be setting up, has a handle. This is one to watch. I don't probably, you don't take advantage of it ahead of time before earnings, but nice action here. It's an IPO from last year, only just over a year old. So a lot to like about this one, but we'll have to see it turn out. It may not turn out.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll keep it on the list for now, ticker GFS. Thank you so much, Ed, and thanks everyone for tuning in. We will be back with more tomorrow morning on IBD Live, and we hope you join us, investors.com/IBD Live, for all the details for our show, the first 90 minutes of the trading day, where we get to interact with you live, look at charts live, talk about market conditions, trade setups that we are looking at, and so much more. So we'll see you in the morning, bright and early, and we'll see you in just a few minutes for our leaderboard scorecard. Once again, leaderboard.investors.com. See you there. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.